Close your eyes for just a moment, not to escape anything, not to pretend that life isn't exactly what it is right now, just to arrive, to be here, in this moment, with yourself and with the one who brought you to this very moment. Take a slow breath in and let it out. Again, breathe in and breathe out. Good, because I want to say something to you today that I need you to actually receive. Not just hear, receive. Let it go past your mind and settle somewhere deeper, somewhere in your chest, somewhere in that place inside of you that has been tense for longer than you even realized. Here it is. You can breathe now. Because God is holding you. He has you, not in a distant, theoretical, someday kind of way. Right now, in this moment, in this season, in the middle of everything you're carrying, everything you're facing, everything you haven't figured out yet, everything that still feels uncertain. He has you, and that means you can breathe. I want to start there because I know what it feels like to forget how. To forget how to breathe. In the way that anxiety settles in so quietly, so gradually, that you don't even realize one day that you've been holding your breath. Emotionally, spiritually, for months, maybe even years. You've been bracing, waiting for the next thing to go wrong, waiting for the other shoe to drop, managing every variable you can manage, and quietly terrified of the ones you can't. You've been holding it together on the outside, while something inside of you has been quietly exhausted, quietly desperate, quietly longing for permission to just rest, to just exhale, to just stop carrying everything so tightly. And I want to give you that permission today, not because your circumstances have changed, not because everything has been resolved, but because of something that is more stable than your circumstances, more reliable than any resolution, more constant than any outcome. God is holding you, and that changes everything. Let me talk about what it means to be held, really held, because I think we use that language sometimes without letting it land. We say, God has me, and then we go right back to trying to have ourselves. We say, I trust him, and then we lie awake at 3 a.m, rehearsing every possible scenario. We say he's in control, and then we hold our breath until we feel like things are under our control again. And there is no condemnation in that. That is what it is to be human. That is what it is to live in a world where things happen that you didn't choose, and where the gap between what God has promised and what you can see in front of you sometimes feels impossibly wide. But I want to help you close that gap today, not by pretending the gap doesn't exist, but by going deeper into the reality of what it means to be held by God. Think about what it means to hold something. When you hold something, your hands are around it. When you hold something, it is not falling. When you hold something, you are aware of it. You feel it. You are in contact with it. You are actively keeping it secure. It is not off in another room somewhere. It is not something you've set down and forgotten about. It is in your hands, right there. And when God holds you, he is not holding you the way we sometimes hold things. Loosely, distracted, one hand while the other is busy with something else. No, when God holds you, his hands are fully around you. His attention is fully on you. His awareness of every detail of your life, every fear, every hope, every broken thing, every beautiful thing, is complete. Nothing about you has escaped his notice. Nothing about your situation has surprised him. He knew before you knew. He saw before you saw. He prepared before you could prepare. And he is still holding you now. Let me speak to the person who has been strong for a very long time. You know who you are. You are the one other people lean on. You are the one who keeps things moving, who holds things together, who shows up even when you're running on empty. You are the one who knows how to put on a good face, who knows how to say, I'm fine in a way that sounds convincing, even when you are not fine, even when you haven't been fine for a while. And somewhere in the middle of all of that strength, somewhere underneath all of that showing up and holding together and keeping going, there is a part of you that is exhausted, deeply exhausted, not just tired, tired of being the one who carries, tired of not having somewhere to lay it all down, tired of holding it together when what you actually want, what you actually need, is for someone to hold you. I want you to hear something. You are allowed to need that. You are allowed to be the one who needs to be held sometimes. You are allowed to stop performing strength for a moment and just be human. And God is not waiting for you to have it together before he will hold you. He is not waiting for you to stop needing so much. He is not impressed by your independence. He is moved by your honesty. He is drawn to your vulnerability, and he is already here, already holding, already present in the exhaustion you've been carrying, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to let yourself be held. So breathe. Right now, just breathe. You don't have to figure everything out to breathe. You just have to let yourself be where you are, and trust that where you are is exactly where God has you. There is something I want to talk about today that I think sits at the center of all of this, and that is the difference between resting in God's hands and just believing that God exists. Because those are not the same thing. A lot of us believe in God. We believe He is real. We believe He is good. We believe He is powerful. But we live as though we are on our own. We live as though our security depends on what we can control. We live as though our peace is contingent on how things turn out. We believe God is holding the world. But we haven't quite settled into the truth that He is holding us specifically. You specifically. Not in a general, He loves everyone kind of way. In a deeply personal, I know your name, I know your story, I know what you need before you ask, I am already working on your behalf kind of way. That is the God we are dealing with, not a God who is managing the universe from a distance, too busy with the big picture to notice the details of your life. A God who considers the details of your life to be part of His big picture. A God who is somehow entirely present with every single person on this earth. Simultaneously, fully, completely. That is not something our finite minds can fully comprehend. But it is true. And when you begin to let that truth go deeper than your theology, when you let it become the foundation beneath your feet, something shifts. You start to breathe differently. You start to hold things a little more loosely. You start to trust the process even when you can't see the outcome. Because you know who is holding you. And you know that His hands do not drop things. Let's talk about the things that make it hard to believe we are being held. Because there are real things, real circumstances, real losses, real pain, real silence from God that stretches longer than we expected. And I am not going to talk past those. I am not going to give you a spiritual sounding answer that dismisses what you're actually walking through. Because the truth is, sometimes being held by God does not look the way we expected it to. Sometimes being held by God looks like going through something hard and finding that you didn't go through it alone. Sometimes it looks like a door closing that you were sure was supposed to open and not understanding why for a very long time. Sometimes it looks like a season of silence that stretches so long, you start to wonder if He is still there. And I want to be honest about that, because that silence, that confusion, that waiting is real, and it is hard, and it does not mean that He has let you go. Here is what I know about silence. Silence is not absence. When a parent holds a sleeping child, they don't keep talking just to prove they're there. They hold, they breathe, they stay. The silence is not emptiness. The silence is presence without words. And sometimes God holds us in exactly that way. Not because He has nothing to say, but because what you need in that moment is not information. It is not an explanation. It is not a roadmap of what comes next. What you need is to know that you are not alone. And He is providing that, even in the quiet. Especially in the quiet. I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people carry without ever naming it. And that is the fear that maybe God's holding has limits. The fear that maybe there is something about you. Some chapter of your story. Some version of your past. Something you've done or said or been that put you just outside of what God fully holds. Like maybe He holds you, but with a little more distance than He holds others. Like maybe He loves you in general, but the specific details of who you are and what you've been through, those are too much even for Him. I want to address that directly, because that is a lie, and it is one of the most damaging lies that can live in a person's heart. There is nothing in your story that disqualifies you from being held by God. Not your worst moment, not your longest failure, not the thing you're most ashamed of, not the thing you've never told anyone, not the ways you've fallen short of who you wanted to be. None of it. God's holding is not conditional on your goodness. If it were, none of us would qualify. His holding is not earned. It is given, freely, fully, permanently, and it does not loosen based on your performance. It does not retract when you stumble. It does not grow distant when you doubt. It stays. He stays. And that is not because He doesn't see your failures. It is because He sees past them, to who you actually are, to who He created you to be, to the purpose He placed in you before you ever made a single mistake. And that person, that version of you that He sees, that is the one, He is holding. Let me talk about what happens in us when we finally start to believe that. When we stop just knowing it as a concept and actually start living from it. The first thing that happens is that the grip loosens. That white-knuckled hold on outcomes, on timelines, on other people's opinions, on the way things are supposed to go. It starts to relax, not because you stop caring, but because you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Because when you know that God has you, you don't have to have yourself quite so tightly. You don't have to be your own security system. You don't have to control every variable to feel safe. Because safe is not a circumstance. Safe is a person, and that person has you. The second thing that happens is that you start to live more fully in the present, because so much of our anxiety lives in the future, in the what-ifs. What if this doesn't work out? What if I make the wrong decision? What if I miss it? What if things never change? What if they do change and I'm not ready? And our minds spin in the future, while the present moment, the actual moment we are in, passes by largely unlived. But when you are anchored in the truth that God is holding you, you can come back to the present, because the future is already in His hands. The outcomes you're worried about are already known by Him. He is already there, He is already working, and you can trust that, which means you can be here, right here, in this moment, breathing, present. The third thing that happens is that you start to see evidence of His holding that you were too anxious to notice before. Because when you're in a state of constant vigilance, always scanning for what could go wrong, always bracing for what's next, you miss so much. You miss the grace that was right in front of you. The moment of unexpected provision. The person who showed up at exactly the right time. The door that closed and turned out to be a mercy. The prayer that was answered in a way you didn't recognize as an answer. When you slow down, when you breathe, when you stop gripping so tightly, you start to see it. You start to see the fingerprints of God all over your story. The way He was there in the moment you thought you were alone. The way He provided in the season you thought you were forgotten. The way He was working in the chapter you thought was wasted. And as you see it more clearly, your trust deepens. And as your trust deepens, your breathing gets easier. And as your breathing gets easier, you become more of who you actually are. Not who fear made you, who God made you. Let me take a moment to speak about the body, because I think we sometimes forget that the truth God speaks over us is meant to land not just in our minds, but in our bodies. Tension lives in the body. The weight of carrying too much, the years of bracing and gripping and managing, lives in the body, in the tightness in your shoulders, in the ache in your chest, in the restlessness that makes it hard to sleep, in the way you hold your jaw without realizing it, in the shallow breathing that has become your default. And I want to invite you right now, in the most gentle and non-demanding way, to let your body catch up to what your spirit is receiving. Roll your shoulders back. Drop them away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Soften the space between your eyebrows. And breathe in slowly. All the way in. And let it go. All the way out. Again. In and out. Let your body know what your heart is learning. That you are held. That you are safe. That you can release. Now let me speak into something specific. Because I think there is a particular kind of person listening to this today who has been holding their breath not out of anxiety exactly, but out of grief. Something has happened, something significant, something that changed the shape of your life in a way you didn't ask for and didn't see coming. Maybe it was a loss, a person you loved deeply who is no longer here, a relationship that ended and took a piece of you with it, a dream that didn't happen the way you believed it would. Maybe it was a betrayal, someone you trusted who let you down in a way that still stings when you think about it. A door that should have opened but didn't. A season that should have been beautiful but wasn't. And in the aftermath of that, something in you went quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind of quiet that is really just grief learning to be invisible. The kind of quiet that has learned not to bring it up anymore. Because time has passed and you feel like you should be over it. But you're not. Not fully. And so you carry it quietly. And that carrying takes up a lot of air. I want to say to you directly, God sees that grief. He has not forgotten what you've been through. He has not moved on just because time has. He holds that grief with you, and He holds you in the middle of it, not urging you to get over it faster, not comparing your timeline to someone else's, just holding, patient, present, as close as you will let Him, and you are allowed to breathe in that. You are allowed to let yourself be held in your grief, rather than holding your grief alone. And then there is another kind of held breath, the one that belongs to the person who is waiting for something they have believed for and prayed for and hoped for a very long time, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for restoration, waiting for a door to open, waiting for the promise to be fulfilled, waiting for the chapter that God put in your heart to actually begin. And the waiting has been long, long enough that you've started to wonder, did I hear wrong? Is this really what he said? Am I waiting for something that was never actually promised? And the doubt makes you hold your breath. Because if you breathe too deeply, if you let yourself hope too fully, then disappointment has more room to move in. And so you hold back. You believe, but not completely. You hope, but you cushion it. You trust, but with one part of yourself hanging back, just in case. I want to say something gently but clearly. That half-held hope is exhausting. It is not protecting you. It is just keeping you from the full weight of what it means to rest in God. And you do not have to understand God's timing to trust it. You do not have to see the how to believe the what. You do not have to have the whole picture to take the next breath. You just have to know that the one who planted the promise in you is the same one who is holding you while you wait for it. And his hands do not change between seasons. He was holding you when he gave you the vision. He is holding you in the waiting. He will be holding you in the fulfillment. It is the same hands the whole time. Let me speak now about trust. Because breathing, real breathing, is an act of trust. Think about what trust requires. It requires believing that what you are depending on will hold. When you sit in a chair, you don't consciously think through whether it will hold your weight. You trust it. You sit. When you go to sleep at night, you don't lie awake making sure the earth keeps spinning. You trust it. You close your eyes. But when it comes to God, when it comes to trusting that He has our lives in His hands, we so often decide that this is the one area where we cannot simply rest. This is the one area where we need to be actively managing things. Because what if He doesn't come through? What if He doesn't do what we're counting on Him to do? And here is the honest, gentle truth. That is not really trust. That is belief paired with backup plans. That is faith with an escape hatch. And I understand why we do it. Because we have been let down. Not always by God, but by people, by systems, by circumstances we didn't see coming, by prayers that weren't answered the way we asked. And those experiences shape the way we hold trust. They make trust feel risky. They make letting go feel dangerous. They make breathing freely feel like naivety. But I want to offer you something today. I want to offer you the radical idea that God is categorically different from everything that has ever let you down. Not slightly better, not usually reliable, categorically different. His goodness is not circumstantial. His faithfulness is not conditional. His holding of you is not dependent on your behavior or your faith level or the quality of your prayers. He is who He is, regardless of what is happening in your life. And who He is someone who holds completely, who holds permanently, who holds even when you stop believing He is. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine someone you love deeply, a child, a dear friend, someone whose safety you would give everything to protect. Now imagine that person is going through something difficult, and you have the power to hold them through it. Would you? Of course you would, without hesitation. You would pull them close. You would stay. You would not leave just because the process was long or difficult or uncomfortable to witness. You would hold them for as long as they needed. And if they pulled away, if they said, "I don't need you, I can handle this myself," you wouldn't leave. You would stay close, ready, waiting for the moment they let themselves be held. If that is true of human love in its most imperfect form, how much more is it true of God? He loves you with a love that has no ceiling, a love that does not tire, a love that does not grow impatient, a love that is not contingent on you receiving it well. He is holding you. He has always been holding you, and He will not stop. I want to talk about permission for a moment, because I think a lot of us are waiting for permission to rest, permission to stop striving for a moment, permission to not have it all figured out, permission to be in process without feeling like we're behind, permission to not be okay, without that meaning something is wrong with our faith, permission to breathe. And I want to give you that today, on behalf of a God who never required you to perform your way to His peace. You have permission to be exactly where you are, not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, not where you were last year, right here, in this chapter, with these questions, with this uncertainty, with this grief or this hope or this confusion or this faith that some days feels strong and other days feels like a very small candle in a very big wind. You are allowed to be here, and God is allowed to meet you here, which is exactly what He is doing. Let me speak now about what it looks like, practically, to live from the truth that God is holding you. Because I don't want this to just be a beautiful thing you heard today. I want it to change something about how you move through tomorrow. The first thing it looks like is starting your day differently. Not with your to-do list, not with your phone, not with everything that needs to happen before 10 a.m., but with a moment, just a moment of saying, God, I know you have me today. I don't have to white-knuckle this. I don't have to manage every outcome. I'm going to walk through this day in your hands. That is a different posture, and posture changes everything. The second thing it looks like is catching yourself when you slip into gripping mode. And you will, because we all do. The anxiety will rise. The what-ifs will start. The urge to control will come back. And when it does, you don't have to condemn yourself. You just come back. You take a breath. You remember, God has me. I don't have to hold this. He is already holding it. And you breathe again. The third thing it looks like is letting other people in. Because one of the ways God holds us is through the people He has placed in our lives. His hands often have skin on them. And when we refuse to let people in, when we insist on carrying everything alone, we are sometimes refusing one of the ways He is trying to hold us. So let someone in. Tell someone the truth about how you're doing. Let someone sit with you in the hard. Let someone pray with you. Let yourself be loved. Because that too is an act of trust. The fourth thing it looks like is choosing to notice. Every day, even in hard seasons, there are small moments of grace, small evidences of being held. The song that came on at the right time, the unexpected kindness from a stranger, the moment of peace that had no logical reason to be there. The prayer that got answered so quietly, you almost missed it. Start noticing those. Start collecting them. Because gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a discipline. It is a practice of training your eyes to see what God is doing, even when what He is doing is quiet. And the more you notice, the easier it becomes to breathe. Because you start to build a record, a personal history of being held. And that record becomes the thing you return to in the moments of doubt. He held me then. He is holding me now. He will hold me in what's coming. As we begin to come to a close today, I want to do something a little different. I want to speak some things over you, not as a prayer, although feel free to receive it that way, but as a declaration of what is true about you. Right now, regardless of what your circumstances look like, regardless of how you feel in this moment, you are not forgotten. You are not falling. You are not too far gone. You are not too much. You are not unseen. You are not behind. You are not alone in this. You are not defined by your hardest chapter. You are not limited by your longest struggle. You are not disqualified by your greatest failure. You are held, fully, completely, permanently, by a God who chose you before you chose Him, by a God whose plans for you did not end with the chapter you thought was the end, by a God who is more committed to your wholeness than you have been, by a God who says, I am not done with you, not even close. And that means you can breathe right now, in this moment, with everything exactly as it is, not waiting for things to be resolved, not waiting for the breakthrough, not waiting for the answers. Right now, in the middle of the not yet, in the middle of the still waiting, in the middle of the I don't understand, you can breathe because you are held, and that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Take one more breath with me. Slow and deep, in and all the way out. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands open. Let yourself be where you are without needing it to be somewhere else. Because God is here, in this exact moment, in this exact room, in this exact chapter of your story. He has not left. He has not looked away. He has not grown weary of holding you. He is here, and you are held. And because of that, you can breathe. If this message met you somewhere real today, I want to invite you to share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they are held. Someone who is carrying too much. Someone who has been holding their breath. Someone who needs permission to rest in the truth that God has them. You know someone who needs this. Pass it on. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your sign. We are building a community here of people who are committed to going deep with God, who are choosing faith over fear, who are learning to breathe again. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And until then, breathe. You are held, and that is the most stable ground there is.